going to now find the domain and the range of a graph. So given a graph, determine the domain and range of the graph. So just as a little mnemonic way of remembering here, the domain can be thought of as the x values. They're the x values that are valid for a particular function. And the range are the values that you get out of the function. So when we're asking questions about the domain, we will be looking at the x-axis. And when we ask questions about the y, let me put that one in a different color here. When we ask questions about the y, we'll be looking at the y-axis. Sorry, when we're asking about the range, we'll be looking at the y-axis. Okay, so looking at the graph here, we have x values that go all the way down to -1, -2, -3. Alright? Because the graph begins being drawn at the x value of -3. So our domain is going to start at -3. Notice this graph has no jumps or anything too crazy in it, so our x values work all the way over here. We have graph, 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 graph. The graph is technically the blue part, but it's above these or below these x-axis points, up until we get to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's the ending part of the domain. So the domain begins at -3 and extends all the way over to 5. Notice because of the open dot, -3 is not included. We put a parenthesis in our interval notation. And because 5 was a solid dot, that is included, we put a bracket. So that's our formal domain. Range, extremely similar. What's the lowest y value our graph ever reaches? Well, that would, funny enough, because the function is decreasing, be on the right endpoint. So if we look at that, it looks like we go down to a lowest y value of -2 on the y-axis. And then the graph is good, no crazy jumps again, keep going up and up and up and up. And what's the highest y value we ever reach? Well, the highest y value looks like it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the highest point in the range would be the number 5. Was -2 included? Solid dot. Yes, it is. Is 5 included? No, 5 was an open dot, so that would be a parenthesis. So the correct domain is from -3 to 5, and the range is from -2 to 5. Try this one on your own for a second. Pause the video, see if you can get your domain and range, and assuming you tried that, what would the domain be? The domain on this graph seems to go from here to here. So -1, -2, -3, -4, -5 is where the domain begins, and it extends all the way to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The left endpoint is solid, it's included. The right endpoint is open, not included. Then the range. The range at the lowest point would be over here. -1, -2, -3, -4, and it extends along the y-axis up until here. 1, 2, 3. So we would say the range begins at -4, that's the lowest point, and it extends upward to 3. 3 is not included because it's an open dot. -4 was included because it is a solid dot.